Hello everyone, welcome to LTEC 676, Social and Ethical Issues in Educational Technology, Session 9. In this video, we're going to cover three topics. First, we're going to review the results of the mid-semester course evaluation. Then, I want to listen to some of the big ideas that you shared in Critical Reflection number 4. And finally, we'll close out by looking for some connections across the ideas shared in your assignments. So let's get started. Now, I don't want to spend too much time on this, but I think it's important for all of you to see the feedback that was shared about the class during Session 8. The first question in the evaluation asked if the course videos were clear and organized. We had 6 responses, and I'm happy to share that the vast majority of you agreed or strongly agreed that the course videos are clear and organized. Thank you. I'm happy to have that feedback, and I'm happy to hear that these videos are working for you. Relatedly, we asked if whether or not the readings are helping you understand the course content. Here, we can see the responses were a little bit more mixed. We had one person answering neutral, and then another person saying they agree, and then the other 4 people saying they strongly agree. In terms of the assignments, most of you agreed or strongly agreed that they are helping you understand the course content. And relatedly, most of you felt that the pace of the class is just right. Very helpful feedback for me. Thank you for taking that seriously. Another important question in the evaluation was whether or not the class was difficult. And it seems like we're finding the equilibrium between about half of you are saying neutral, not too difficult or not too easy, whereas the other half of you said that you disagreed that this class is not very difficult. My goal as an instructor is to keep this course within your zone of proximal development. In other words, it should be just the right level so that it's not too hard and not too easy for you. So I'm going to be keeping an eye and looking for feedback to that particular question. And then finally, I asked, are you learning a lot in this class? And the vast majority of you said you strongly agreed, saying, yes, definitively, I agree that I'm learning a lot in this class. And then one person said they agreed. So that's excellent feedback. Thank you very much. I also asked, how is the class going for you, using an open-ended question. Thank you for the kind feedback here. There was a lot of enthusiasm. You can read all of the responses here. Almost everyone put something in. I did want to highlight a couple of things that were meaningful for me. One person wrote that the critical reflections were forcing them to make thoughtful connections. And of course, I think you've heard in my rhetoric in the course videos, I'm all about connections. I'm feeding you lots of information from lots of different sources, lots of big ideas. And of course, I want you to be making connections between and across the readings, the course videos, and the course assignments. I'm happy to hear that. Another person pointed out that the work they're doing for this class is showing them new ways of looking at things. That's always a great sign. I don't want this class to be a repeat of what you've already done. So if it's showing you new ways to look at things you already know about, that's a really good sign. So I really want to encourage you to brace those new ways of looking at things, new ways of looking at the world, new ways of looking at education, new ways of looking at technology, and of course, educational technology. Fantastic. Another person wrote that they're appreciating the critical reflections as they are a really helpful tool to help process thoughts and questions. That's helpful feedback for me. I try to make the critical reflections meaningful assignments. I don't want them to be boring for you. And if they're tools to help you process your own thinking, that's excellent. And I don't make the critical reflections easy. I set them up so that the steps are easy to follow, but they are going to require some deeper thinking, some connection making on your part. So I hope we can maintain that through the rest of the semester. But again, I appreciate the feedback. Keep it up. And finally, one last point I wanted to highlight, that the class is providing another perspective of looking at education and technology. Again, this is very similar to the new ways of looking at things, But again, our goal in this class, I know many of you are educators and I know many of you are interested in the role of technology in society. But if we can begin to see the intersection, the relationship between education and technology and society in a new way, we are accomplishing our goal. That new perspective is really going to strengthen your ability to affect change when it comes to the use of educational technology in school systems, in corporate settings, or wherever technology is having an impact on teaching and learning. So fantastic. Thank you everyone for that feedback. Finally, I wanted to point out some of the suggestions. I asked the question in the evaluation. It was open-ended. Were there any suggestions that you'd like to make about how to improve the course? And there were two very thoughtful, helpful ideas shared. So one person said that they really liked the Flipgrid assignments and asked, could we include more assignments requiring us to respond to a critical reflection through Flipgrid? I think that's a fantastic idea. Flipgrid is actually designed to have online video conversations or discussions. And so I completely embrace this idea. So in the next few assignments, be looking for more use of Flipgrid. Excellent suggestion. And another suggestion is focused on the readings. And this particular individual said the readings are confusing when it seems the message can be conveyed in plain English. Now I want to comment on that point. I agree. And these are hard readings. You have to keep in mind that this is a high 600 level course. So depending on your graduate school muscle, your familiarity with being immersed in academic scholarly reading, this is heavy stuff. It's heavy even for me, someone who spent over a decade immersed in educational technology scholarship. Rest assured that you're not alone. These readings are difficult, but they will get easier the more you spend time with these articles. It's almost like an untrained muscle. The more you read academic articles, the easier they're going to be. That said, however, I do want you to know that the suggestion of lessening the amount of academic reading and assigning different authors to read, I'm hearing you. And I have been saving and looking for some less formal scholarly articles that we can begin to integrate into the course. I think there's room for both. So thank you for that suggestion, and I hear you, and I will do my best to make things a little bit more accessible in the second half of the semester. Okay, everyone, that's all I wanted to talk about related to the course reflection. So now I wanted to focus on some of the big ideas that you communicated in critical reflection 4, and this idea of making some connections across the big ideas that you pulled out and said resonated with you. So let's take a look at the assignment. The purpose of the assignment, of course, was to review and reflect on a big idea from the course. And to do that, I asked you to find a quote from one of the course readings that you felt was particularly powerful and representative of the course as a whole. In short, you're looking for something that really spoke to you, an idea that truly resonates deep within you. And then once you found that quote, once you selected something, I asked you to share the quote, talk about why you chose that quote, and how you felt that quote represents the class as a whole, and how the idea or ideas in the quotes changed or altered how you think about the role of technology in education. And of course, that entire assignment was to get us to be thinking about, as people positioned somewhere in the realm of education. Remember, we're studying this in a college of education. To be thinking about our main question is, what should an educator know about educational technology? And there's lots of ideas in those readings that we should know as educators about educational technology. So without further ado, what I'd like to do is share with you some of the thinking that you shared with me and each other in assignment 4. So I'd like to start out with Brandon's chosen quotes, and his quote is shown here. So let's hear Brandon talk about his quote, why he chose this particular quote in his own words.
Now, I chose this quote because it resonates with me for this reason. Just because you give someone access to a tool does not mean that they have equal access and knowledge of how to use this tool. This is especially true when comparing these students without prior knowledge to other students with the knowledge on how to use the tool. Basically, these students without the knowledge or without being taught the skills or the know-how on how to use this tool are not going to progress far, while their peers with the prior knowledge and the know-how will move forward without their less advantaged peers. So while these students have equal access to this tool, just like everyone else, they will still be left behind because they do not know how to use it and thus do not have equity when compared to their more advantaged peers. Without equitable knowledge, teaching and understanding how to use these tools, there is no equitable access for students like this. So how is this quote representative of the class as a whole? Well, this quote represents the reason why we are all here and in this LTEC program. It is a reminder that we cannot assume that just because a student has access to some piece of technology, that they know how to use it. Our job as instructors, as curriculum creators, or as instructional designers, our job is to create opportunities for students to be successful. This means teaching students how to use technology to their benefit and ensuring that the students know how to not only access the technology, but how to use it and apply the technology in their learning. So how does this quote alter the way I think about the role of technology within education? Well, from this quote, it makes me not want to take certain things or certain ideas for granted. Prior to this quote, I would have presumed that everyone knows how to use the internet to find information. You go on Google, you type in what you want to know, voila, you have a wealth of information at your fingertips. But it's not as simple as that. You still have to shift through that information and see what is factual, what is incorrect, or what is even relevant for your use. This quote shows not to presume that students automatically know how to do something. Instead, this quote shows that students need to be taught on how to use these resources. Taking this a step further, this quote can be construed as ensuring that students know how to use the technology implemented into their learning environments. Now, there is a stereotype today of students being, air quotes, digital natives, who instinctively are adept at using technology, know how to use said technology without any prior training, and have a deep love for using this technology. This stereotype is simply not true. Whether this technology be tablets, gamification techniques, laptops, mobile learning, or even access to the internet and using it to find resources and find information, students need to be taught on how to not only access this technology, but how to use it as well. In short, this quote shows me that not only do students need to be information literate, but they also need to have the computer and digital literate skills as well. And these are skills which must be taught to them.
Okay, thank you, Brandon. That was excellent. Really fun assignment. I love how you shape this as an episode of Please Quote Me. That was very clever and fun. So now let's take a look at Leilani's chosen quote and reflection. She actually chose two halves of a quote from Mark Warschauer's writings in 2011. Here they are. Now let's hear from Lonnie in her own words why she chose this quote.
So the reason why I chose this quote was because it gives the reader a clear sense of hope. Although on one hand, we have read lots of research revealing that there is large disparities situated in technological access in schools. But on the other hand, educators and designers can be hopeful that our efforts are not at a lost cause. So the Learning Design and Technology program here at UH Manoa will equip us with the skills to design learning environments that are conducive to student learning if the access is available at schools. So this quote is representative of the class as a whole because as we delve deeper into social issues and inequities that the field of education faces, this summarizes only one of those very important inequities, which is access to technology in schools. So the first step to solving inequities in school systems is to be aware that these issues exist and decide on how they are directly or indirectly affecting education. The first hurdle to overcome inequity is to increase access in technology in schools. And only after this hurdle is defeated, only then can a designer or educator create effective learning environments. So to end, before taking this course, I firmly believe that having students just exposed to technology was supposed to help build their computer skills. But after entering the LTEC program and learning more about inequity in this course, I've come to the conclusion that throwing tools at students will not solve problems. The existence of the tool itself does not solve problems. People designing learning environments and using educational strategies with those tools help raise academic achievement in students and provides us with a sense of hope.
Great work, Lonnie. Really reflective, excellent analysis. I think we all can relate to the ideas and the thinking in your post. Great work. Okay, here's Ryan's chosen quote and reflection. And Ryan chose the quote from Doyle. And we all know this about how slow school systems are to change. And yet we're embedded in this society that, because of technology, is changing so quickly. So let's hear Ryan in his own words about why he chose this quote.
So in the middle of the screen, you will see my quote. It's from this week's YouTube video. It was actually the New York Times video that was embedded into this week's presentation, which said, "Schools change very slowly. They're one of the most conservative institutions on the planet, and technology changes ever so fast, and there is a disconnect." And it came from one of the professors that was mentioned in the downtown school, Al Doyle. And so what happened was I found this particular week's video very powerful. Being a teacher myself and striving to be one of those teachers to kind of incorporate technology more into education and getting students to participate and incorporate technology in academics is a huge thing for me, especially with the job market becoming so dependent on technology and how well you can use that technology. I think it's very important for our students to gain that experience early so that they are able to, get a head start when they get into, the upper high school, college, and beyond. So I chose that quote to be mine, and I did enjoy it, and that's kind of the reason why I chose that, is because it's kind of general but very important to me to kind of share what I know and my views of the class within this one quote. So how is it representative of the entire class? And I kind of wrote some notes here for you, for myself, as for you, the reader, and then how it incorporates equality versus equity versus equality, and ideas that connect the changing technology race with schools trying to chase technology trends. So, as I said, we are all trying to incorporate technology. And as we've read, there are different schools that are at different points in that race. And some schools are more fortunate, where some aren't. And then the question of equality versus equity come up. And as we found out in the past assignments, that this is a very important concept to understand and to see that although we want to encourage our students to use technology, there are always blocks that we run into or roadblocks that we run into to prevent us from achieving our goals. And we do need to keep in mind these aspects as well. I also tried to incorporate social technology systems following the upgrades. And so we talked about this too, and how, we started off with very primitive things that we consider primitive, like the chalkboard and whiteboard, which may not have been so primitive back then. But we are continuously upgrading our ability to use technology in the classroom. And it kind of expands on how there's a disconnect because technology is moving so quickly. And like Al said, education is so conservative. It takes so long for us to get something that by the time we get it, it's outdated. And I think that's the problem that we run into when we talk about technology and education. The other two things that I have is my personal technology pedagogy, and that's my personal feelings about technology and how I want to incorporate technology into my classroom. I'm trying to get, even though my preschoolers are very young, they've been exposed to technology beyond birth. You don't know how many students that come into my classroom who don't know how to talk yet, but they can use the iPad like none other. And so I want to discourage parents from using it so early, but at the same time, I want to encourage my students to become effective users of technology, even at that young age. We talked about for the last 8 weeks how technology is going to play a huge role in education, as well as some of the drawbacks of having technology so prevalent in the education and at students so young in age. But I want to try to balance the two out in my personal technology pedagogy. And then, of course, the overall theme of the class is the ethical issues that come with technology, and connecting entire schools and providing students with technology. You always run into ethical issues that come up. And I know we just started the class. We're only halfway through. I look forward to looking for more issues and ethical discussion about why technology is so difficult to incorporate into schools. And some of it has to do with ethical issues that come with it. We kind of touch bases on a little bit of that in the equality versus equity portion of the course. But this is kind of one of the quotes that really, hit me a little bit harder than others, only because I can relate to this. And it got me thinking about how much technology plays a role in education and how we're almost in a race to kind of keep up with it. But, being in the education field, being able to provide all these technology upgrades to thousands and millions of students is very difficult to do and very costly. And so that's why I think we're in this disconnect with technology. Technology is great, but it's also very expensive. And so the overall quote and overall meaning behind why I chose it is because I felt that it incorporated not only all the topics that we've covered in class, but also covered some of my personal technology pedagogy as well. And so I hope you enjoyed the presentation. I'm going to be posting my visual online as well, so you can take a look at it also.
Thank you, Ryan. That was excellent work. Again, a thoughtful analysis, really digging deep into some of the ideas around socio-technical systems and the role of personal technology and pedagogy. Excellent analysis and an articulate reflection. Thank you, Ryan. Moving on, Jeff chose one of the main ideas in the course, and he actually didn't quote one of the readings, but actually quoted something we've been looking at throughout the course, which is this idea that equity and equality are not the same thing. They're not equal. So let's hear from Jeff in his own words about why he decided to focus on this particular idea.
I chose this to submit for my assignment because it really resonated with me and caused me to clearly understand the concept that Dr. Hoffman was trying to convey. This is an important concept to understand because so far in this class, and I anticipate for the remainder of the class, it will be a foundational concept upon which a lot of the lessons in this class will be built. When thinking about how this illustration can be related to educational technology, it becomes apparent that educational technology has the potential to be a crucial component to delivering equity in education. Although not the only tool available, educational technology is a crucial tool that can be leveraged with much less effort than other means in order to ensure a higher level of equity for all students. And isn't that the goal, to provide not educational equality, but educational equity for as many students as possible?
Well done, Jeff. Thank you so much for your reflection and your analysis. Those are all good, important reasons about why educators need to be paying attention to both equity and equality. Next, we have Keahe's chosen quote and reflection. And of course, he's focusing on the school to prison pipeline, and he's harnessing some of the quotes from Linda Darling Hammond in her 2007 article. Let's hear from Keahe in his own words as to why he chose this quote.
These quotes are representative of the class because they speak to two social and ethical issues in education today. The article, as I read it, reinforced something that I already believe. Technology is a tool that, when placed in the right hands, can help all students reach their potential. High-quality teachers are equipped to make effective use of technology to give all students the skill set they need to succeed in the 21st century.
Thank you, Keahe. Keahe, you have an amazing radio voice. I think you would make a good host of a radio show or a podcast or a video show. It's a very pleasant voice to listen to, and the ideas in your reflection are spot on. This is important information for educators to know and to think about this pipeline and how educational technology directly and or indirectly might be contributing to or enabling or hopefully disrupting this school to prison pipeline. Thanks for sharing, Keahe. Next, we have Tiana's chosen quote and reflection. And Tiana took us all the way back to Turkle and her article from 2010, Always On You, and this idea that our technology reflects and shapes our values. Such a simple yet powerful quote. Now let's hear from Tiana in her own words as to why she chose this quote.
I chose this quote because it spoke to me as both an educator and person. As an educator, technology shapes the way in which I structure my class and teach my students. I value the use of technology integration as a means to engage students, differentiate instruction, and provide equity within my classroom. As a person in society, I value communication, and as technology has developed, it has altered the means in which I communicate and interact with others. This quote represents the class as a whole because technology is shaping and changing the way in which people interact, work, and more importantly, learn. The technology we choose to utilize, whether it be personally or in education, ultimately affects our social and ethical values. Technology influences and impacts the moral principles that we choose to uphold and live by. The ideas in this quote have altered my thoughts about the role of technology in education. It has allowed me to see that technology impacts education beyond just the physical means in which we utilize it. Technology in education affects our values as individuals, as well as influences the social and ethical principles in which we reflect in our everyday lives.
Great job, Tiana. Thank you for this thoughtful and thought-provoking analysis of this particular quote and how it helps us answer our question as educators, what do we need to know about educational technology? And finally, we have Mauricia's chosen quote and reflection, and she also drew on Boyd. So let's hear from Mauricia in her own words as to why she chose this particular quote.
I chose this quote because even though pretty much everybody has access to some sort of technology, does not mean that they have the same access to the people that can help them sort through all that information and knowledge that they have access to. And I think this quote is representative of the class, kind of what I just said, because in our class, we talk about technology and having access to technology, but we shouldn't assume that just because anyone has a computer or is able to get on the internet, that they have the resources from the people around them that can help them use that technology appropriately to sort through the information that they're finding online and give them the skills that they need to do that independently. I think that this quote changes how I think about the role of technology in education, because I've always thought about technology as a really good resource and that putting it in classrooms would be really beneficial. However, just because a student has that computer in front of them, is able to access the internet, doesn't mean that they have the same qualified teacher that can help them sort through that knowledge appropriately and teach them the skills that they need to do that on their own.
And there you have it. Thank you, Mauricia. Excellent analysis, very articulate and thoughtful, and really thinking about these social divisions And this idea that those social divisions can be reinforced both in the real physical world, but also online. And some would argue that the online, where there's a little bit of anonymity and the ubiquity and the 24/7-ness of online interactions, actually can amplify social divisions in ways that were unintended. Excellent analysis. Thank you, Marisha. Okay, everyone, we're out of time for this week. Great job on Critical Reflection 4. Thank you for your mid-semester course evaluation feedback. That's very helpful. I'm going to fold that into the remaining weeks of the course. That's all for today. Have a great week. I'll see you in Canvas.